Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the podcast of Faithfully Speaking. I am your host, Melissa Wade in the Water, where we take topics of conversations and concerns and issues, and we share them in a very positive, honest, and loving way. And so today we are talking, and we're continuing our conversation because we know that August is National Black Business Month. So, God says he wishes that he says, beloved, I wish above all things that thou mayest prosper, be in health, even as thy soul prospereth. And so if your vision that God has given you is to start a business, well, we want to make sure that you have all the information that you need to start it correctly. So that's what we've been doing. Last week, we talked about businesses and different kind of businesses and maybe, the perks and the steps that you can do to get there the right way with Mr. Tenney and the Tenney Group. And one of the businesses that he mentioned was a nonprofit business. And we know a lot of people, if you have a heart for the people, a heart for, giving back or doing something specific, then a lot of times even our churches are non-profit businesses. So I decided to find a wonderful young lady who has her own nonprofit. She is very fluent in being nonprofit and knowing the perks and things and stumbles that you may make. And so I've invited her to be on with me. So please help me welcome my guest today, Mrs. Stacey L. Carless, and she is the founder and executive director of the North Carolina Counts Coalition. Stacey, how you doing?
Hi, Melissa. I'm great. Thanks. How are you?
I am fantastic. So blessed to have you on with me. Wonderful young lady. You have a vision in your head and you said, I'm just going to step out on faith, and you did it. So congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you for having me.
You are more than welcome. So first of all, let's start off by just finding out a little bit more about you, really briefly, you and your organization.
Sure. So, like you said, my name is Stacey Carless, and I'm the executive director of NC Counts Coalition. And we are a nonpartisan 501c3, and we're here in Raleigh, North Carolina. And we're a statewide organization committed to building a healthy, just, and equitable North Carolina through cross-sector partnerships that advance systemic solutions for communities that face systemic barriers. And that includes Black, Indigenous, people of color, the LGBTQ plus community, low wealth immigrant, and other communities across North Carolina.
So Stacey, what made you decide to come up with this or to start this kind of business? What was on your heart, your mind during the time?
Sure. So I'm actually an attorney. I'm an attorney by trade, and I have been practicing law for some time. And I love the law. I'm very passionate about it, but I just wanted my career to go into a different path. And I had it in my heart to help people. But I wanted to do it in a way that I could still utilize some of the skills that I had developed as an attorney, some of my legal knowledge and my passion for policy and empowering communities. I wanted to take all of that and put it into a nonprofit. And so I actually started with the 2020 census, which was actually initially I was hired for a position to do census outreach and saw this incredible opportunity to start NC Counts Coalition instead of as a program under another nonprofit, but as a nonprofit in and of itself to advance equity across North Carolina by achieving a complete and accurate 2020 census count for North Carolina. So my roots are actually started with census work because it was a lot about civil rights, social justice, how we get resources into communities, how we get funding into communities, and how we make sure that communities are accurately represented when it comes to our democracy. How do we make sure we're building an inclusive democracy where people can be heard, where people can be seen? Because that's my background and that's my passion. But once the census was over, I had the opportunity to take that work and transition it and to really build out NC Counts Coalition and all of the amazing partnerships that we had stemming from that civic engagement work to do more civic engagement around redistricting, but also to work with community-based organizations to help us build power within BIPOC communities by, connecting grassroots organizations to state government, where we're putting community at the table and making sure that government solutions are really truly community centered and based when we're talking about advancing equity throughout North Carolina.
Stacey, I am so impressed. I don't even know what to say. I'm like, wow. I just kept saying, wow, 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 wow. Stacey, thank you. Your passion is what led you to all of this, to make way for so many people like ourselves who wouldn't know how to or even where to begin. So again, thank you. And with that, would you say that is, I guess what I want to know is, what is the mission of a nonprofit? How do you come up with that nonprofit that you want to begin? People have so many things on their heart and on their mind. How do they centralize it to make it what it can be and to serve those they want it to serve?
Absolutely. And I think when I was doing NC Counts Coalition, our initial mission statement was just to achieve a complete and accurate 2020 census. Very narrow, very like, this is what we're going to do. But when it came for the opportunity to extend our organization out, when you're thinking about your mission statement, you really want to think about, what is the purpose? What do you want to do with your nonprofit? Not a short-term goal, but how can you take the vision and wrap it into the mission statement? And so for myself and for my nonprofit, I wrote out words that resonated with me and things that I think about and things that I wanted to achieve in this nonprofit. And then I actually brought other people to the table to kind of think through, how can we push this nonprofit forward? What should its final mission statement be when people, like your elevator pitch, when people hear it, they know exactly what we're trying to do. And so I think when you're thinking through a nonprofit, write it out, think about what words resonate with you and what you're trying to achieve. What is your public purpose? What good are you trying to do in the community? And package it and be specific. I think that was the other thing is, I remember when I wrote it, somebody came back and they said, hey, you might want to name out the communities that you're seeking to do outreach to, because, if I'm no longer executive director one day, we want the next executive director or whoever comes in, right? Because you want the nonprofit to continue for a long time, to be able to fulfill that mission and the vision that you set it up with, right? So be specific and very intentional about what you want your purpose to be and saying it.
Wow, you just defined Habakkuk 2:2. Write the vision and make it plain so that those that read it will go on and run. Amen. You just totally just defined that scripture for sure. My computer's just wanting to pop up little things. So you mentioned you got with other people. So to have a nonprofit, is there a board that you have to kind of put together in order to have this? Explain that for us a little bit.
There is, and I'm so glad you brought that up, Melissa, because I think the board is one of the most important parts of a nonprofit. You want your board, especially when you're new and you're a young nonprofit, you want strong board members who, one, believe in what you're doing and they believe in your vision, right? Like you need for them, when they close their eyes, they could see exactly what you're trying to do. But two, who have time to commit to supporting your vision. A lot of times, it's great to put powerhouses on your board, but when you have powerhouses, you have to remember they may not have a lot of time. And you're going to want your board members to help you with fundraising. You're going to want your board members to help you with strategy. You want your board members to show up to events. And sometimes, leaders have extremely busy schedules and they may not have that time to really dedicate to your nonprofit in that way. So I would encourage you, when you're thinking about building out your board, think about people around you who believe in what you're doing and who maybe want to achieve the same things, but they don't want to work in a nonprofit, but they do want to support a nonprofit and they have some time and they have some connections, do a matrix. So when you start building out your board, look at different areas, who has strengths in fundraising, who, if you're doing digital equity and inclusion, right, who has technology support or background,
right.
Who's good with money, because you need a treasurer. You need someone to make sure that your finances are correct. Is there an attorney who's looking to provide some pro bono services that they could be available to help make sure that your nonprofit is staying within the realms of, being an entity for the public benefit? So those are just some of the things you want to think about, but spend a lot of time thinking through your board, because your board is going to help you build your organization.
Right.
But also they're going to help you stay compliant. And a lot of times when you might be emotionally attached to an idea, the board can kind of take a step back and say, that sounds like a great idea, but let's think through realistically or practically, how this might be able to work. So yeah, just think through people around you. And I'm sure that you've got board members in your community to uplift your organization.
Stacey, I'm just loving the way that you're breaking this down. So for those that are watching and listening right now, they're able to I hope y'all are taking notes, because she is really giving you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is it. This is what you need to do. So Stacey, I love it. I love it. Now you mentioned you need to find out or get board members who are good with certain things. And you mentioned who's good with money. That brings me to the next question. A lot of times we think of nonprofits as being exactly that, nonprofits. So how do you get the money to keep your business afloat?
Yes, that is a great question. And a lot of times people hear the nonprofit, so they think there's no profit. And that's not necessarily true. There could be profit. The difference is that the profit has to be for a public interest and not for a private interest. And so a lot of times nonprofits that stay afloat, it's because they are actually selling services. It's just that they're selling services for a public benefit that fits within the restrictions of the IRS for 501c3 compliance to be a nonprofit entity. And so, selling services, that's one way that a nonprofit can make money. Government grants. There are so many government grants out there. Now, I will say government grants are very difficult to manage, and they are very difficult to apply for. So, go to grants.gov, look at the different subject areas and see what's out there. But if you're going to apply for a government grant, give yourself a lot of time, because it is not an easy process. There's also individual contributions, right? And when I think of individual contributions, a lot of times I think about President Barack Obama and how his campaign was, right? Like, he didn't go looking for large contributions. He went door to door and he built his campaign $10 by $20 by 30, So even like when you're on Facebook and you do those, it's my birthday, instead of giving me $30 for my 30th birthday, donate $30 to my nonprofit. And then, of course, there's grants, the traditional way of philanthropy. And there are a lot of grants out there. I encourage you to literally, this is what I did when I started my nonprofit. I Googled North Carolina philanthropy and grants. And I pulled up different lists of different philanthropic organizations across the state. I started going to their website. I put it in a spreadsheet of what they fund. And I just started writing grants on my own. I did not have a background in grant writing, and
Really?
No, I had no idea. Never wrote a grant before. Never.
Oh my goodness.
With anyone before, and I got a lot of no's, right? And so I want you to know, and I still get a lot of no's, right? Like it's hard to win grants, but every time you write a grant, I think you get a little bit better. When you do write a grant, if the philanthropic organization is willing to, I encourage you, even if you get a no, to reach back out and say, hey, thank you for the opportunity to apply. Can you give me feedback? And that's what I've been utilizing to build up my grant writing skills. To be able to win grant is by getting direct feedback from those philanthropic organizations. You'll be surprised. A lot of times they have program managers or project managers who are willing to give you a little bit of feedback on your grant and on your proposal and tips to move forward.
I feel like I'm in class right now, because I'm just writing down, okay, ask for feed. I'm like writing down all of this stuff, North Carolina. I'm like, you've given us the websites just in casual conversation. I'm loving it, Stacey. I'm like, okay. So, shall I say, what would you say? I know you mentioned the board. What would make for a good nonprofit? I'm about to start a nonprofit. What are some of the things you need that are key for me to actually say, hey, look, I know I'm going in the right direction?
You know what, Melissa? For me, it's been two things. One is faith, and the other is passion. Sometimes you have to take a risk, and nonprofits are not easy, right? And I always say these are like passion projects, because you don't always make a lot of money. I'm sure I could be doing way better in the private sector. But what drives me, what wakes me up every morning, and what gets me here to work is knowing about the people I'm helping on the other side, right? So, staying up late at night, none of those things bother me because I know the impact that I'm having in community. So I would say that, especially with my nonprofit personally, even with my employees, when they come in for interviews, I'm not looking for experience. I'm looking for your faith and your passion.
Yeah.
If you've got that, we could teach, you can learn. If you're willing to learn, I'm willing to take that chance with you, but are you as passionate about the communities that we're serving as I am? Because if you are, then we'll figure it out together and we're going to get this done. So I say, start with those two things. Once you have those things, some more of like the tangible things that you should have is networking, right? Just show up in places. I tell people I show up in places where I know money's going to be. Because
I like that. Yes.
and I'm an introverted person. I don't like to be out in public, but if I know that there is going to be an event where there are people who have money and they like to give money, then I'm going to show up and I'm going to talk about my nonprofit and I'm going to share it with them, because you never know what might come of that. And it may not be a check, but it might just be a connection, right? Like, you want to network, talk to everyone, tell everyone what you're doing, and don't necessarily look for, oh, well, this didn't work out because I didn't get a donation. No, spread the word. You want people to know who you are and what you're doing, because eventually someone's going to pick up on it and they're going to say, oh, they're working to build leadership skills in young women. I've always wanted to do that. Let me make a contribution. So I think that's the other thing is network. We don't have Rolodexes anymore, but I guess use your phone or whatever, use your Facebook.
Exactly. We've got something better. We've got this, and hopefully we don't lose it, because when we do, we're messed up. We're totally messed up. But that's great. I always tell my kids, sometimes it's not about what you know, it's about who you know. That will help you get into the door. And once you get into the door, then it's all about you. That's when you say, hey, let me sell myself. Let me tell everybody, with the excitement and the passion that you are telling us right now. And that excitement and passion alone will sell what it is that you're doing. And you will, grab the attention of those. And like you said, you come across that one person that says, hey, look, whoa, I love what you're doing, and I want to sow a seed into it. And you just never know how large that seed might be, right?
Exactly. Amen.
To mention giving money, most nonprofits, like you said, are 501c, which means whatever money you give is you're able to write it off, correct?
Exactly. And that's also a good reminder too. Like I share with my friends all the time, like, hey, when you're coming down to the end of the year and you are trying to make those financial decisions because taxes are coming up, I have free. That's right. You feel free to drop a little bit of that love on MC Counts Coalition or any other organization. So yeah, remind your family and friends, these are tax deductible. So it's there to help you out. So yeah, definitely.
So let's quickly go back to your business, of what you're doing, and to just find out more about it. When did you start your business, and what? I know you said you started off with that, doing your census, but it kind of grew from there. How did it grow, and what are you doing now as opposed to what you were doing in the beginning? I know it's tied into it, but what more have you added onto it?
Yeah, so we're a coalition, and what has been really amazing is that we change our program areas or our projects all the time, but our infrastructure stays the same. So what I mean by that is we work in numbers, right? So we work with really small grassroots organizations across the state, predominantly led by Black people or people of color. And we're almost like an intermediary. So a lot of times what happens is philanthropy or government, they fund MC Counts Coalition, and then we take that funding and wrap it into a really easy application process for our grassroots members so that they could apply for funding for the projects that we work on. And this is a really interesting concept, but also really important because a lot of the grassroots that we work with have extremely small budgets. A lot of them are less than $500,000 a year. They don't have full-time staff. They are volunteer-based and led. And so this gives them access to government funding that they typically would not have access to, as well as my organization helps them manage that funding once they receive it. So through our coalition, we're interested in investing in grassroots organizations, nonprofit organizations that don't typically receive funding. If you Google funding of like Black-led nonprofits, you will see there is a substantial, just like everything else, pay equity, all those other things. It's no different in nonprofit. Predominantly white-led organizations are funded at a much higher rate than organizations that are led by Black people and other people of color. And so my organization really invests into organizations that are run by and led by Black people and other people of color, to make sure that they have the infrastructure they need to succeed. Because a lot of times those are the organizations that have personal relationships on the ground, that are getting people out to vote, that are dropping off food supplies in the middle of a pandemic, that are making sure that people have masks, or providing information and resources to help community members meet their daily needs. So that's one part of my organization. But the other part is we're really power building. So just talking about building an inclusive democracy. So our belief is, if you want an inclusive democracy, you have to look at individuals holistically, meaning it's not enough to go out there and do get out the vote and to tell people to register to vote. If there's an individual who does not have a driver's license, therefore they do not have a car, which means that they cannot work, which means that they are struggling and they have transitional housing and their children are not eating, then they probably don't have a lot of incentive to vote, right? So if we're going to get people to vote and really be empowered to participate in our democracy and take ownership of what's happening, then we have to look at all these other needs. We need to figure out, why don't they have a job? How can we help get their license restored? How can we make sure that their babies are fed? How can we make sure that we are teaching our community and providing them with resources to make them as whole as possible, so that when they feel whole and complete, they can take that next level and say, hey, now I'm ready to be a part of this system. I'm ready to vote. I'm ready to run for office, right? I'm ready to lead a redistricting testimony or something of that sort. So it's twofold. One part is the health equity, making sure that our communities have everything they need to be healthy. And healthy isn't just physical health, that's mental and emotional as well. But then after we make that person healthy, how can we engage them civically so that they are a part of America's democracy?
Absolutely. I love it. And we are going to need that even more as we move along and coming up to our election year. We need to make sure that we reach out to those in those situations that you have said. Now, I was going to ask you, why would a nonprofit want to join or be associated with NC Counts Coalition? But you pretty much summed that up. Why wouldn't they want to be? You're the intermediary between them getting what they need, or at least, the funds to do and to go forth with their vision. So right now, I just want to ask how, where do they go? What are your social media handles? What's your website? What's your phone number so they can call you up?
Sure. Thank you. Yes. Visit nccounts.org or follow us on social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Twitter at nccounts. And if you just reach out to us, and you don't have to have your C3 status to be a part of NC Counts Coalition. You could just have a community-based organization and maybe you're trying to get to your C3 status. We still have opportunities that, as long as your values are aligned with ours and you believe in the work that we're doing and you are about empowering communities, then you can come join our coalition and our family. And we have an amazing staff, an amazing team that provides support to our community-based organizations, partners within our network. And when funding opportunities come along, those are open for our members. So definitely visit us on social media, visit our website. And if you contact us, we'll get someone to call you back and to talk a little bit more and learn about what you're trying to do. And like I said, as long as it's a good match, we're going to try to help you as much as possible. We want to build up organizations to the point of which they don't need funding from NC Counts, where they do have those contacts on their own, and they're able to operate without us. So we'll take you from a little seedling to the plant.
I love it. Stacey, Carless, thank you. Thank you for your vision. Thank you for stepping out. Thank you for being obedient, to not staying in those four walls that you got your degree in and say, hey, look, I want to do something and use this at the same time, because God has equipped us most definitely to do that of which He has given us and the vision that He has given us. And you are truly a wonderful example of all that and so much more. Thank you so very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Melissa. And thank you for having me. This was a pleasure.
You are more than welcome. All right, y'all. You need to share this with as many people as possible, okay? Call your family, your mom and them and grandma and them and say, look, we're trying to start this thing. You might be trying to start it even as a family. This is definitely a show you want to watch over and over again. As I said, Stacey took us to class, and she took us to church, if you want to say that. She was the preacher today. We all took some notes. So watch this over and over again in recognition of Black Business Month. Nonprofits, this is the show you want to do. Stacey, Carless, many, many blessings to you. If you ever need our help, I might need yours. I might have to call you up and become one of those people associated with your business as well. But thank you for just truly joining us today for Faithfully Speaking.
Thank you. Thank you, Melissa.
You are more than welcome. All right, y'all. That's another wrap for Faithfully Speaking. Until next Monday, we will see you there as we have good, wonderful conversation and topics and issues, and we talk about them. We just sit back and communicate about them in a good, positive, honest, and loving way, because we love you. Until next time, God bless you. We love you.